Now, it's not like the Panthers that ran away and hid in this series, but they were the feistier, more energetic, more opportunistic team. And your man, Sergei Bobrovsky, how weird would this be? You've been writing this man's obituary, writing this man's epitaph since he signed with the team. It seemed like a good idea for what, about 10 minutes, Libby, until we saw him play?
I don't know. You were ahead of me. You started calling him blind. You swore that he had a vision problem.
Yes. We signed a guy with a cataract. Unbelievable. A tick, I think we discovered. Did he have a tick? Yeah, he had one of those things. Or he does like some weird winking all of a sudden. And you're thinking, are you trying to tell me, like that you're saying something, but you really don't mean it? What is it that you're doing, Bobrovsky? Communicate with him. He was communicating with his banker. That's all anybody was talking about. That he was making his $10 million that Dale Talon doled out for him when he could have signed any number of other attractive free agents.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
And a very pleasant good morning, South Florida, and the rest of the universe tuned in here on South Florida Live. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie, it's the Defo Show. And again, the beat goes on, the heat goes on, the cats go on, and we just keep winning, man. This is quickly becoming title town here. I don't want to blow it with a premature evaluation about the circumstances, but Lubie, we did it again. That's all we can say. I mean, it's okay to be on a bandwagon now, is it not? I know we're supposed to be unbiased and, not necessarily supposed to show favoritism one team over the other. You're in the media. You're supposed to have a level head about things and consider both sides of the equation. But you can't help but be euphoric after last night's 1-0 victory. Florida Panthers go up 3-0, just matching strides with the Miami Heat, a couple of 8-seed Cinderella stories that are making history right now in both the NHL and the NBA, respectively. The Cats win at 1-0 behind Sergei Bobrovsky last night, a man whose name was Mud around town. I don't even know if his name was Mud. You would mention Sergei Bobrovsky, and somebody would have thought that was some Russian rabbi diamond dealer, more so than a top-level NHL goaltender who was signed for $70 million by Dale Talon. Dale Talon has to be at least laughing over, some kind of a Labatt's or Molson's somewhere, in Prince Edward Island or wherever you stand right now. Dale Talon, who was kind of a scourge here. Nobody really fully understood his tenure as general manager of the Panthers. It almost seemed like he was fueled by a certain level of self and team sabotage, did it not? And in fact, they made a lot of coaching changes during that period of time, including getting rid of Gerard Gallant in unceremonious fashion, among others who left the team one way or another. Dale Talon was the constant, and you kept wondering, what does this guy have on upper-level management that he's able to retain a job after a series of bozoic moves that made you think that this guy had no clue what he was doing? And, maybe in the long run, might turn out to be right. Although it's a very improbable story. But would you say this is a fair statement, Lubie, that much of sports analysis and also fan, opinion is formulated by often lofty expectations of where their team is at? Now, some fans are just resigned to the fact that their team is going to suck, right? I mean, if you're in Kansas City, you're rooting for the Royals, you're pretty much assuming that you're going to finish somewhere near the bottom of the standings every year. That's the way it's been for a long period of time. Wasn't always that way. Remember Chris Chambliss? There's a long drive. They had some good teams there in Kansas City. Who was the farm boy? Mark Littell. Remember that guy, a reliever? They used to bring in the farm boy, Mark Littell, and that was it. It was lights out. It was like you brought in Mariano Rivera. A very short-lived span there as a top-notch reliever, and that sometimes happens. But expectations fuel our opinion and are overwhelmingly influential, are they not? I mean, that the fact that you had high expectations for these two teams coming into the season was not unjustified. You had a team that had just won the President's Trophy as the best team in hockey the previous year. Yes, very deflating that they got swept out of the second round of the playoffs by it wasn't even the eventual Stanley Cup champion last year. It was the Lightning who knocked them out, and Colorado ended up winning the championship last year. And I have no way. I've been watching these Western series in hockey. I don't know that I could tell you. I would say this that the Panthers would certainly be no overwhelming underdog to either the Las Vegas Golden Knights, who try to go up 3-0 tonight in their Western Conference Final after winning 2 overtime games at home over the Dallas Stars, or the Dallas Stars, who were life and death to beat the second-year expansion Seattle Kraken to get to this stage of the playoffs. So, I mean, if you're thinking Stanley Cup now, Lubie, I don't mean to put too many lofty expectations on this thing, but you actually have to start thinking about the cup at this point, do you not?
Look, they'll have played the best 3 teams. You get that, right? Like, it will have been, and they already are talking about just getting through the hockey slog is the toughest thing in sports, at least North American professional sports, or North American sports. Well, they will have beaten the 3 best teams. The Boston Bruins were record-settingly good in their regular season. Then after them, the Maple Leafs had the next best odds. Then after them was the Carolina Hurricanes. Like, I don't know what happened out west, but it wasn't fair in the East. And the Panthers will have faced all of them. And at least as of now, it's not over yet, but as of now, we'll have one. Look, that Bruins series was a freaking war, and it went what, 7? But
7 games, yeah.
Down
3-1, finished, eliminated.
We're a really good Maple Leafs team. They were in control that entire series. And look, this series, I don't know about control because each game has been a freaking war. Like, even last night, it didn't go to overtime, but it went down to the last second.
Pretty much a dead even series, you would have to say.
Holding in my breath. Like, you have gotten through those 3 series. And look, as it stands right now, they're up 3-0. As close as the games have been, people are still going to see that it's 3-0.
Well, they won them all. The differential has been as marginal as you can possibly get. This Rob Brindamore has to be ready to blow his brains out. I'm surprised he's not gargling with a embalming fluid at these press conferences. Never mind a little Coca-Cola or a Gatorade. How cheesy is that, by the way, that Nick Saban, who probably doesn't even drink Coca-Cola, always has that little can of Coke next to him at the press conference? You cheap, money-grubbing, dishonest monetary whore. Unbelievable. Nick Saban. Why don't I bring him up now? I shouldn't be upset about it. I'm not really upset about that. I think it's kind of comical that Nick is such a phony. But you're getting nothing but reality here from this Florida Panther team. And Sergei Bobrovsky and Dale Talon, do we owe them immense numbers of apologies? If Bobrovsky bombed out from this point on and the Panthers did nothing, maybe even lost this series to Carolina, I guess if he falls apart at the seams there and just completely unravels, you would probably go back to the opinion that what a fat sack of shit this guy is. That's what everybody thought, though. I mean, fat sack of shit was probably you could have gotten that response from almost anybody. You could have gone into some church and asked the most docile of pastors, hey, what do you think of Sergei Bobrovsky? And he would have looked at you and gone, Bobrovsky? That fat sack of shit? You're like Father Arnold. I mean, I've never heard you speak like this before. But that's the kind of reaction that you got. So expectations were pretty low, going into the postseason, especially since, you had this Alex Lyon story. It is incredible, the various narratives that have taken place and evolved here with this Florida Panther story. Because last year, best team in hockey, they make a bold move. They make a trade. Uyghur and Huberdeau, for Matt Tkachuk. I guess they threw in a bunch of draft picks, which I'm not sure of what significance they are once you get past, like, the first couple of rounds there. And the Panthers have had like a horrible history in the NHL draft for the most part. I mean, they've drafted a couple of guys very highly that were good. Barkov, Huberdeau being a couple of those players. Ekblad, and in the past, they've had some good players. Joe Vokap was good as a number 2 overall pick. But in general, their drafts for a long period of time, especially under Dale Talon, were a complete abomination.
Abysmal.
Where you look at and see like 7 rounds of the draft and like none of the guys ever surfaced as NHL players, period. Never played a game. They were lucky to get out of Saskatchewan there with a suitcase and, a 6-pack of beer that had nothing going with draft picks. So they haven't been able to build a team that way, although they do have a couple of star players they accumulated with high early round picks. And yet, I mean, the statute of limitations was almost up on these guys, was it not? Before the Tkachuk deal. You can't imagine that had they not made that deal for Matt Tkachuk, that they would be in the position they're in right now.
I know.
And then on top of that, I mean, think about this. This guy came off the bench. He was pulling splinters out of his ass, Sergei Bobrovsky, in desperation, only because the Cinderella child there, Alex Lyon, all of a sudden had reverted back to being the journeyman schmenk that he was throughout his lifetime.
Yeah.
It was like, going back in the day, my favorite Nick, all of a sudden, if Butch Comey started shooting 70% from the field and they had the three-point stripe instead of the usual very disappointing 34% that he hoisted up there after being one of the great shooters in the history of Bowling Green, just ask Jim Larinaga about this guy. So you love this when this happens, when you see stories of not only redemption, but guys that have been just ridiculed. It's kind of like you being right about a lot of things now, Lubie. Imagine the immeasurable ridicule you were subjected to when you expressed opinions on our radio show for many, many years. And people would just call in and go, Lubie, turn off that microphone. You're burying me. You're burying me. And now, all of a sudden, here you are. You're almost clairvoyant about this stuff. Yeah. As if you were Dionne Warwick running, some 800 number. Right about virtually everything. And same thing with Bobrovsky. It couldn't have had a better game last night. That's Sebastian Aho. I would say, I didn't catch that much of the third period of the game. I kind of was like half dozing off. Not that it wasn't exciting enough, but I just hit a wall after watching like sporting events. I've been, gargling with Visine now for the last, it seems like we've been having this period of euphoria for 2 months already, no?
Like a month and a half.
How are we even still alive? Much up, less up 3-0 in both of these series. Come on, Lubie. This was over. Expectations were zero. Mm-hmm. Barely crawled into the postseason with the Panthers, and then you have to face the daunting task of facing the Boston Bruins, who go up 3-1. And you're saying, okay, it was nice. We put up a little bit of a fight there. So, we'll regroup and maybe get off to a better start next year and have some success. But you can't waste these kind of seasons either. These opportunities only come up every so often. For the Panthers, it's been since 1996 that they sniffed the Stanley Cup Finals. And, they're in there with a real live shot, you would have to say, Lubie, after what we've seen in this Carolina series. Because... how about this one for a cliche? They're finding ways to win.
Yes.
Even when being outplayed. Yes. Some people would make the case that they were outplayed in the Toronto series for the majority of most of those games. But they ended up winning. And they did it handily in 5 games. Here they are, maybe on the precipice of sweeping the Carolina Hurricanes, who I guess, had the second best record in hockey this year, right out of the postseason. In a series of nail-biters, but all sparked, or a lot of it sparked, by Tkachuk. And I guess you could give some other guys credit, too. You've had contributors, but for the most part, it's been Tkachuk and Sergei Bobrovsky. Incredible story. Let's hope he can keep it up. 32 saves in the game last night. He has stopped 109 of his last 111 shots that he's faced under immense pressure. I don't know that the Panthers' defense has been all that slick in this series, because the scoring opportunities for Carolina have been enormous, I believe, by comparison. They have that stat, and I'm not sure how they determine realistic scoring chances, but it's realistic when a guy breaks in 1-on-0 and, has essentially a breakaway, and it happens to be a high-profile scorer like Sebastian Aho, and Bobrovsky comes up with incredible save after incredible save. He almost looked like a magician in there, did he not? He looked like Lance Burton, pulling a rabbit out of a top hat. Yes. And then at the same time, sawing a woman in half and having her come right back. Incredible what this guy has been doing in the pipes. That was far and away one of the best games we've ever seen. I know the Beezer in that, finale there against Patrick Waugh.
It was Beezer-esque.
It was Beezer-esque. It really was, because they were hammering this guy.
Yep.
And, just turned out to be brilliant. So, Bobrovsky 10-1 in his last 11 games, .958 save percentage, and in this series so far, 261 minutes 38 seconds. No team has led at any point by more than 1 goal.
That's crazy.
Yeah, just back and forth, pretty even. But the Panthers manufacturing ways to win, 2 in overtime against Carolina on the road, and then holding on, making a mid-second period goal stand up, and going up 3-0. So. Still not out of the question. What would you say? There's even the slightest opening there for Carolina to get back in the series. You can only, the ultimate cliche applies now, where you can only go one game at a time if you're in this situation. It would think, you would think that this was an insurmountable wall to climb if you're Carolina, but they've been right there, and they just as easily could have won all 3 games and had the Panthers on the doorstep of being swept, in which case we'd be saying what, Lubie? Hey, well, pretty good. I mean, we got by 2 teams. It had to run out at some point in time. But no, great story being written there. I mean, right up there with anything that's ever happened here in my 42 years in South Florida. This particular 2023 winter sports season. Do we have to mention the college games again? Imagine that. We're so hot right now in the 2 professional sports that we can throw out what was the most remarkable thing I think I'd ever seen to that point, which was 2 South Florida college basketball teams making the Final Four in the same year, or ever for that matter. That was phenomenal, and yet that seems like centuries ago.
Yeah.
As the Heat tonight will attempt to finally sweep their way into the finals here by eliminating. I believe they'll be putting Boston out of their misery. What do you think?
Hurricanes there to put Boston out of the misery. I hope so. It's interesting because their defense was better, but it's also true that the Hurricanes got a lot of scoring chances. The one thing I'll say that I noticed where I do give the defense credit, in the past, you'd have them allowing second and third chances. You'd have Bobrovsky
giving up that big, rebound where it just sits right in front of the net about 10 feet out.
What was different last night was they weren't if the Hurricanes got a shot off, they were not getting a second shot. They would find the puck, they would clear it, they would find the puck, they'd possess it and move it. Or Bobrovsky that's what was impressive to me, was not only was stopping shots, like he was freaking dancing in the middle of a salsa line, but he would see the puck and grab it. Like he
puck management.
Puck management was impeccable last night.
I don't think that's what they mean by puck management, the goalie, but
they defense and Bobrovsky, yes, they gave up a lot of runs at the goal, but they weren't allowing him to get a second chance. It's funny the way that they were talking about Bobrovsky. I forgot they were talking about him because they're like, yeah, the way Bob's playing, you're not going to score on the first chance. I'm like, who are they talking about? I'm like, what is going on?
This guy was a human sieve before, literally.
The way he's playing, there's no way you're going to have to get second chances. And so I realized in that third period, they came at him a lot. They weren't getting second chances. They were making sure to either cover it up or get rid of it. I'm like, okay, so you know what? They know he's playing so well. They're making sure to just keep it clean. As long as they keep it clean, they can ride his back. And that's literally what they did. And it was freaking amazing.
There was a story out there put out by the Sunrise Police that Bobrovsky, after the game, had literally skated over to the Sawgrass Mills Mall and pickpocketed 14 people. And they had no idea that he had stolen their wallets. That one glove save he made in the second period was incredible. Literally, I mean, had no chance whatsoever. Snatched it out of midair and just very coolly, pitched the puck to the referee. Terrific. So, Cinderella stories on both fronts. Expectations were not necessarily very high. I guess they were coming into the season. You had reason to believe that the Heat would be good. They were a hot shooting team last year. They got all the way within an eyelash of going to the NBA Finals a year ago against this very same Boston Celtics team. Some hard luck there on a Jimmy Butler 3, and people debated all off season. Oh, should he have taken the 3? He didn't have to. Jimmy's not a 3-point shooter. But now, again, playoff Jimmy has resurfaced, and didn't even have to play hard in this last ball game against the Boston Celtics. That was one of the most inexplicable things. If you're analyzing events, I mean, let's face it, in horse racing, you're constantly looking most frequently at an animal's last performance. And, they're really good handicappers. Sometimes you'll see a guy go deep and go, look at this race here. A year ago, he was in $40,000 maiden claiming company, and he smoked this field, and it had so-and-so in it. And you're thinking, I don't usually dig that deeply into these things. So, your normal reaction is to react to what you just saw. If you saw last Heat season, you thought, all right, not a great team, but managed to get the most out of what they have, and maybe with slight improvement by certain players. From within, they might be able to, get over the hump this year. But I don't know that you ever saw them. Once the season started, I don't think anybody saw them as a championship-level team. Nobody did. And considering both of these teams were within an eyelash of complete elimination and annihilation, and not even making the postseason. I never want to hear that from a fan again. I don't want to make the postseason. What's the point? I'd rather have a draft pick. The most pathetic argument ever made is that you want to quit. Is it not? That you don't believe that you're in there with a chance when given an opportunity. Think of Andy Ruiz going against Anthony Joshua. You can see it more clearly in an individual sport where here's a guy that literally just on looks alone, you would give him a 0% chance of even surviving a couple of rounds. And then he's getting knocked around there and knocked down. And Joshua's this big hulking heavyweight, huge British following there, 100,000 people at Wembley watching this little Mexican kid get the shit beat out of him. And all of a sudden, like in a David versus Goliath thing, he turns it around and knocks the guy out. Impossible to conceive of. It really is. And when you had these two teams on the brink of elimination, Panthers, literally, remember? I mean, did they really need the Penguins to lose that last game to get in?
Well, it was
or were they in just the game before the last game of the season?
Yeah, it was the second to last game. The Penguins had lost and they had gotten a tie, so that put them in a position. I think they clinched before their last game.
Yeah,
they lost their last game, and they still got in. Like they squeaked in. They both of them squeaked in. That's the thing that people keep bringing up, but we sort of forget is how close to not making it they were to now being dominant.
It looked bad there for a long time, did it not? Same thing with the Heat. I mean, I thought the Heat were done. I actually thought they were going to lose to Chicago that night.
Yes, I said they were going to lose. I'm like, they just lost to a Hawks team that had nothing to play. Like the Hawks were literally talking about trading their star.
Yes,
leading up to that game. Like the Hawks were a disaster. Like it's not happening.
The GM's on the phone in front of Trae Young going, yeah, he's available. We don't want this kid.
And that's the team they lost to. So it's like, okay, the Bulls play them tough. Either the Bulls or the Raptors, whoever they have to play, they play both those teams poorly. They're not winning these games. Like they're just not. Yeah. And they didn't play well. So it wasn't like we looked stupid. With 3 minutes left, they were losing, or 4, whatever the hell it was. They were losing. So, okay, it seemed about right. And Max Strus played his ass off, and Butler did a Butler and carried them to a freaking win. And it's been 9 days since. It's freaking weird.
Complete turnaround. I mean, I keep looking and I have my notes here on the opposite side of one of these pages from yesterday, and I can't believe that one stat alone is really the story of what's happening with the Miami Heat. That you can have 3 players, and not even including Strus, who has been instrumental. It seems like they have 3 out of 4 guys that all of a sudden go nuts from 3-point range. Neither of which is Jimmy Butler or Bam Adebayo, who are not inclined to hoist a lot of threes anyway. But I mean, if you look at Gabe Vincent and Martin, Caleb Martin, and then Duncan Robinson. Look, this guy, if he had walked away from the team, they would have said, "Thank you, Duncan. Yes. Do we have to pay you?"
Yeah, his money.
You couldn't have been any deeper relegated to the bench than Duncan Robinson was during most of the regular season. You almost felt sad for the guy, did you not? Because he seems like a real good guy, and he said all the right things. Look, if I'm collecting $20 million a year, whatever he's making, what was he making? 50 over 5, something like that, which would be nothing for an NBA player. But if you got a giant contract, and so you're thinking, all right, if you're an athlete, though, you want to play. I mean, it doesn't matter what level. Do you really want to ride the bench, Lubie? Were you ever happy sitting the bench on any team that you were ever on? Did you not believe that, hey, put me in, I'm better than these guys?
100%. You always want to play.
Yeah. I don't care even if you realize that you're not as good as the other guys on the team. You still want to get out there and play. Even if it's garbage time, you want to undress, take the warm-ups off and play a few minutes, get as much time in as you can. So I can't imagine he could have been too happy just being iced like that. Incredibly, when he has come into games, Duncan Robinson, he's usually ready to go. But it seems like he's on this basis now with Spoelstra where he throws him out there, and if he hits his first couple of shots, then he's involved, and if he doesn't, right back to the bench. Yet those guys go a collective 25 for 36. That's like 70% from 3-point range on a substantial number of shots. And, therein lies the difference. You weren't getting that during the regular season. Not from 3 different sources besides Butler and Adebayo. You weren't getting that kind of play on a consistent basis, even with Tyler Hero as part of the lineup. So Very hard to have anticipated a complete 180-degree turnaround in shooting efficiency and overall play by the Miami Heat. But they've done it, and they've done it at the right time, and they seem to have done it at a time where the Boston Celtics were just ready to deflate completely. You thought maybe the Celtics would come into this series with a little more drive since they had to beat Philadelphia in both Game 6 on the road and Game 7 just to get this far. And yet, I mean, they played with so little heart and desire in this last ball game that it's hard to imagine that they're going to be able to muster up a way to win this one tonight. Your feeling, though, is what? Finally, the Heat are favored, that they probably lose tonight?
I don't know.
Go back to Boston, lose Game 5. Now it's 3-2, and you come back here for kind of an all or nothing, Johnny Chan push all in game in Game 6, or does it get that far?
Look, the Heat have been really good at this time because they never do this. This is friggin' weird that what they're doing. Even for the Heat, as much as they've won, they usually sort of mess around when they're up. This time around, they haven't.
No. They're playing with like a calculated, killer instinct.
Well, no, it keeps happening, and I'm again. I hope that they plastered it everywhere because the national media and the Celtics and the Celtics fans have only been from the purview of the Celtics. So I hope, because that's this team and Jimmy Butler specifically, and Bam, I guess, thrives off of that.
Celtics look soft, though. I mean, in the key moments of the series, even in the games that were close in Boston, they fell apart at the end, and then came in with nothing in this third game. So I don't know, where do they find the resolve? Do they have late series resiliency?
They did it versus
the Boston Celtics.
I don't know. I'm reserved to just see what happens because the Celtics, they're not as good to me as what people were making them, but they're not what we just saw. Yeah. So there's a lot of talent there. There's no reason why they can't find it. To me, it's if the Heat can keep, they're used to teams taking, look, that's what happened with the Sixers. That's what happened in the first round. Teams take their foot off and the Celtics take advantage. The Heat have these short periods where they do it, but then they get right back to it, and the Celtics haven't been able to take advantage of it. The Heat just have to keep coming. If the Heat can just keep playing smart, don't have these long stretches where they have the dumbass passes and they're not going out to shooters, because the Celtics will then wake up. You saw it happen in the game. Went from 22 to 15 in like a minute and a half. Like the Celtics can do it. It's if you're the Heat, okay, and you just and that's what's supposed to been great. In the past, I've been yelling timeout before I can even think about it. He'll call a timeout at just the right time to settle them. They have to just keep that. They have to keep being the underdog because they suck as the favorite. They've kept that underdog mentality, and if they can somehow keep that, then yes, it should be okay tonight.
Wrong kind of self-examination, though, going on right now with the Boston Celtics. Would you say? As they have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum coming off really poor games. A combined 1 for 14. I mean, that was the other side of that stat. 25 of 36 3-point attempts for Vincent, Martin, and Duncan Robinson in that game for the Heat. And that's aside from your two big scorers who didn't have to do much in that game. Your two big guns really, I guess they combined for 29 altogether. Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler. And yet you had Tatum and Brown go for 29 combined, but it was the ugliest 29 you'll ever see. With the 1 for 14 on 3-point shots. Real poor shooting percentage, 6 for 18, 6 for 17. So a combined 12 for, 35? Such ugliness. That's Brick City. That's Mason card time, right? Where you have to join a union because you've laid so many bricks that they won't allow you to put up any more. And then, Mazzulla talking about discord in the locker room, that there was a lot of, I mean, you would have to think there'd be some dejection after, losing like that. But I don't know that necessarily is a good omen for rallying and rebounding quickly, because now you have to figure out, dare I say it, Lubie? Oh, whose team is it? Is it going to be Brown? Is it going to be Tatum? Is it going to be somebody else? Can they integrate everybody else into the game while those two guys are trying to figure out, what to do about their own personal shooting struggles? Marcus Smart has not been all that smart. I'm a big Marcus Smart fan. And yet he's almost looked bozoic at different times. He had that one brilliant stretch there where he had, what was that, game 2? Where he was the only Celtic doing anything. He had like 9 assists in the
Yeah,
second quarter.
really well.
That was great. But he, he was pathetic in his last game, as was virtually everybody else. And the Celtics, just weren't it. That had South Beach written all over it, didn't it? You can't imagine that the Boston Celtics, who seem to be, they're not one of those crazy teams. It's not like the Raiders came to town or something back in the day, or the Oakland A's, when they had Joe Rudy and company, and you're thinking, wow, these guys, or the Bronx Zoo. This is a team that seems to be, fairly under control and sedate, right? I mean, they have an aging Al Horford. Tatum seems to be a very well-grounded superstar, does he not?
I mean, yeah. No, I mean, they're not. They're younger in age, but they're not young. They're all vets. They've made multiple runs to the Eastern Conference Finals. They were in the NBA Finals last year. Like they, from what we know, had one mindset. So no, they weren't partying. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know what we've seen.
No bed, no mansion. Do those clubs still exist, or were they shut down by the?
I haven't heard
of
the
feds. Bed mansion. You don't hear them mention anymore.
But
where's the evil place on South Beach now, where these NBA players would be hanging out and getting completely trashed before they went out and played a relatively important game in their careers?
11 is a strip club / club. So I presume that's a place where a lot of them go.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what they're doing now. I don't know what's happening. I really don't. I think it's a combination.
The heat got to them? What do you think? Not the Miami heat, but the temperature?
Yeah, it's the weather outside. I think the combination of the heat being this, they still can't wrap their head around. Look, they said it yet. Brogdon still said we're the better team, which is fine. I'm glad that they're holding on to this, because that's the thing that's driving the Heat. Like, them humbling themselves is the worst thing for the Heat. Let them be cocky. Good. Yeah, you're down 0-3. You got it. Please keep that. Just do that, because the Heat thrive off of that. I don't know. I don't know what
0-150, Lubie.
I know.
After last night's sweep by the Denver Nuggets over the Lakers, who came back from the grave. Now the Lakers, at least in that series, I mean, they sort of, had opportunities to win every one of those 4 games. The late game drive of the Denver Nuggets in the first couple of games, so it was a huge differential, and then they managed to swipe the game away from the Lakers in games 3 and 4. Being down 15, I thought that was it, right? You get the token Laker win, and then they go back to Denver, and the Lakers get blown out, and it's all over. Formidable foe, the Denver Nuggets will be if the Heat do survive. But, we can get check, please, on the first one tonight. And that should be a heck of a good time. All right, so the run continues. Jeff Conine beating the drum out there. That was good. I like the integration of all of the South Florida sports teams, kind of intertwining each other. You got, the Heat rallying around the Panthers, Panthers rallying around the Heat. Marlins are even giving indications that they're in on this run here. I'm surprised we haven't seen Tua show up. Was he at the game last night? Tua Tagovailoa? Can he find the arena? That would be the first thing. I mean, we're hoping this guy's not still speaking in Hebrew. Has anybody seen or heard? I heard an advertisement on the radio that he was doing a public appearance, signing autographs. Lubie, are you involved in that? Because you like to cash in on whoever the hot Dolphin quarterback is, and just kind of ride their coattails. At that time, you went to Dick's Sporting Goods, and I had to suck up to Ryan Tannehill. That was you at your phony best, Mike Lubie. You realize what this business is all about, that you can put your feelings and your viewpoints aside in the pursuit of making a buck.
Oh, of course.
What'd you get for that? $400 for hanging out at Dick's Sporting Goods?
That one was great.
Nobody came to see you, right? Nobody came to see you.
They weren't there for me. What was great is I didn't have to see Tannehill, because I would have definitely smarmed it up. And
you would have said something to him? You suck, Ryan.
I'd have been a phony. What are you talking about? I wasn't a jerk. The guy's like 6'4".
Boy, if they could only put an offensive line around you, what a quarterback you would be.
My best Tesla.
It's a guy you've been ripping to shreds, like Bobrovsky. If you saw Bobrovsky right now, what would you say?
Oh God, I'd probably be honest with him. He's a goalie. I feel like they have senses of humor. Or Tannehill was like a fucking quarterback guy.
Tannehill was all right. I like Tannehill.
He was fine. I don't know if he had a sense of humor. Bobrovsky, I would probably joke with him and be like, "Yeah, man, I can't lie." I don't know where this came from, but thank God.
Well, we knew nothing about him except that expectations again. Great expectations. It's Charles Dickens, my friend. great expectations, man. You're out there in the fog trying to just find a bunch of kids that can rip people off. And thinking, I can make something happen with these guys, make a lot of money off them, and take advantage of them. As Bobrovsky did with Panther management by coming off, just a remarkable season that he had there with Columbus, being Panarin. Is that how you say his name, Panarin?
I think so.
The other Russian guy that's with the Rangers. It was a choice. You had to decide whether you wanted this, supposed dynamic scorer in Panarin, or you wanted the goaltending with Sergei Bobrovsky, and it was clear cut. I mean, I thought at the time the people that were outraged by that signing, thinking Bobrovsky was, as you were calling him just 3 weeks ago, a fat sack of shit. I thought, wow. I mean, so what are you supposed to do? I mean, you're just glaring flaw as a team and a franchise. After retirement of Luongo. Is in the pipes. You have to have some guy that can stop pucks, right? And we see, if you're going to build a playoff team, what's the most important component? Is it Matt Tkachuk and toughness? Yeah, that's one of them. But, the team that has the hottest goaltender usually wins the cup.
Look, the way
right now, that's us.
And that's the thing is, like, it's not like their goalie's not playing well. He is. They're playing.
Yeah, they got good
well.
goaltending. Yeah.
It's just Bobrovsky is playing.
He was ridiculous last night. Absolutely insane.
Last night was like, because that's the thing. He's played great, and you look at his stats, and he's done great, but he hasn't carried them. He's gotten help, and he did just enough. They've won. Last night, look, they were getting outshot 2-1.
Carolina was dominating that game. They really were.
Living in the Panthers' end, and it was like, what is going on?
Yeah. Incredible stops. I mean, he did get lucky. There was at least one that hit the post early in the game on a deflection.
They had three different ones hit the post. It's look, you said it. Yes, was it yesterday? I guess, or when we were at Rap, you said it either yesterday or Friday when you were like, look, sometimes shit just happens. And
I mean, two bounces of the puck. I mean, a lot of luck involved. A lot of luck.
That's what hockey is.
Yes.
So when you have a goal,
you make your luck, but there's a lot of luck involved. There's no doubt.
100%. I mean, these 3 games were all really close. Like at the end of that game, they took out their goalie with 3.5 minutes. The Panthers had 4 shots at an empty netter. Like the guy's played his ass off. Like give him a little bit of relief.
Yeah.
They weren't even close.
Nothing. Yeah.
What do you guys do?
Missing the empty net's got to be particularly frustrating, right? It's like a blown layup when you were cherry picking, and you're yelling, here, and the guy finally throws it out to midcourt, and you dribble in uncontested and then bonk a layup, and it goes back the other way. But anyway, terrific times. I don't know that I've ever seen anything quite like it, right? I remember when I first came here, the improbable run of the 83 Hurricanes. I guess I don't know that you can equate it to that. There were signs prior to that season. I guess that was that Howard's second or third year? When they won the championship with the 84 Orange Bowl game and the win over Nebraska. That included a lot of improbables. As you had the Hurricanes, didn't they get blown out? Was that the year they got blown out in their opening game against Florida? Lost that and then ran the table, and they almost lost to East Carolina. And, you had Bernie Kosar, a funky-looking quarterback, back there throwing those Dan Quisenberry passes. And then Nebraska is like a 17.5-point favorite. You get off to a huge start in the game, and they come roaring back with the Steinkuhler Fumblerooski play. I can still hear Howard talking about it. We knew at some point the had to be aware of the Fumblerooski. I just love the way he said Fumblerooski.
Fumblerooski.
The Fumblerooski. That was where the center doesn't hike the ball.
Like who does that in an actual game and it work?
It works. The fumble fucking roost.
That's like a little league.
And now they're storming back Nebraska, this brilliant team with what many consider to be the finest roster of college players ever assembled. Although you would have to look, what was it, 87 when the Canes lost in the Fiesta Bowl to Penn State?
Yeah, that team was loaded.
If you look at that team, I believe, we've mentioned this before, and I've glanced at the roster from time to time, periodically over the years. And Michael Irvin was like a scrub on that team.
Yeah, that team was loaded.
Yeah. It was like a 5th consideration. There's 6.
Like the young guys on that team ended up winning, I think, multiple titles.
Right. That was unbelievable. So it goes both ways. I mean, we've had it work both ways, but, and the 03 Marlins, I guess, were the other story that was somewhat similar.
Marlins, for me, is the one that it was like, I remember, because my dad hated Derek Lee, and I'm like, they love him, Dad. I don't know why, but for some reason, they really like this Derek Lee. I'm telling you. And then they signed Pudge.
Defensively, he was a genius,
He was
Derek Lee.
spectacular. And
Yeah.
like, but they thought he was going to wake up offensively. And I'm like, they really like him, Dad. I'm telling you. Remember the Millar debate? Like you were
Yes.
down here. I
The
was
people's first baseman, Kevin Millar.
You were handling it. My dad loved Millar. My dad was all about Millar. I'm like, Dad, they love Lee. I'm telling you, they made a trade for Lee. Lee's like their number one young dude.
That was all Dave Dombrowski, man. He loved Derek Lee.
And my dad hated Lee. And I'm like, I'm telling you, they watch. And Millar killed him in the spring, so everyone hated it. But Lee was just a natural talent. He just had to figure it out hitting. He was just spectacular.
He might have saved them a run a game at first base. I mean, he was really good.
And then he woke up offensively. He became a lot better offensively.
Yeah. Like a hard 250 or something.
And then they went and got Pudge, and people were like, "Oh, who gives a shit? He's old." I'm like, I don't know about that. Like the dude was still great when they got him, and it was fucking weird that they were able to get him on some 1-year deal. And and all year they were You talk about it. They were until like 2 weeks before or 3 weeks before.
It looked like they were going to miss the playoffs. I remember a PD that I was working for at the time was asking me about the chances of the Marlins making a postseason. And they were 5 games back, I believe, of the Phillies in the wild card chase at the beginning of September. So it didn't look favorable. And, I've often told the story that was the year where they were out of celebrities. So I was invited to throw out the ceremonial first pitch on a September 1st game against the Pittsburgh Pirates. I believe it was September 1st. They were playing the Pirates at home, an afternoon game. And I threw out the ceremonial first ball. Now at the time, some of these numbers and dates might be like off by a day or two or a number or two, but still, the story is about the same. And at the time, you would have thought there'd be some enthusiasm, for trying to kick it in and getting the pennant drive going and making the postseason. And yet, I remember looking around the stadium. I'm standing there on the mound. About half an hour before the game was going to start. And I'm looking around. I remember saying to my friend, I was like, there is nobody fucking here. I think the attendance that day was under 3,000. Nobody gave a flying one, and nobody gave him a chance of doing anything.
No.
Juan Pierre hit a home run. I think it was one of his 2 home runs in his career that day to power the Marlins to a victory. And and that triggered a little bit of a run there where, they got it going. I want to say that the Phillies fell apart a little bit. Yep. They made it into the postseason. Why would you want to make the postseason? Because you always have a chance to win it all. If something, all of a sudden everything clicks in. I mean, you couldn't be any hotter. Neither of these teams played this well for this kind of stretch during any time of the regular season. And I'm old school to be. I don't believe the regular season to be meaningless. It's going to have some meaning even in this postseason because Denver, with the better record, I guess.
Yes, we'll have home court.
We'll have home court, and I think that's largely significant in this final round, especially if you're having to go to Denver. So, not only do they have what appears to be overall the most well-rounded and best team, but even if that's by the slightest of margins, they get a big edge up for having 4 games at home in a best-of-7 series. So
I know Mayo's talked about this a lot, and I remember that year when the Marlins clinched, I said, I'm like, Dad, there's something about this team. Watch them because the pitching had come.
They were coming together at the right time. Yeah.
But he had finally gotten healthy. So you had Burnett, you had Beckett, who was already showing tons of life. You had Willis, you had Bavani. They had a lot of arms. And
remember they had to beat the Yankees.
No, that was the World Series.
In the World Series.
That was
the Yankees. I mean, come on. What were the chances of that? Nobody gave them a shot in that series.
That was a joke. And Brad Penny. So, but the regular season still has weight. Like you'd rather not be an AC.
But I mean, you could look at the play in a regular season. There are teams that you've looked at and said, okay, they really just kind of went through the motions that year. They're really good. Your Magic Wand theory. But I mean, if you saw the Heat during the regular season, I don't think the Heat are ever of the frame of mind that okay, we're just coasting because we're so good. We're going to do it in the postseason. If we get in barely as the number 8 seed. There's no way that was part of their mentality. I mean, it's not an element of the Heat culture.
No, Butler was frustrated this year. I mean, what do you mean? There were points where people thought Butler and Spo had a thing, and Butler wanted out, and this and that. Like Butler wasn't happy. Like,
he was getting a little sullen, because of all the bricks that were coming from the other guys.
They couldn't shoot. He actually. It's funny that people. Okay, he wasn't this guy. I'm not saying he was, but he was actually better than people were giving him credit. The problem was he was getting no help. So eventually it gets tiring, like not getting help from the role guys who he has seen do this. Like he had seen them do this, and they just fell off a fucking cliff. But like he and Spo kept saying similar things, we're close, we like the process, the toughness, all that crap, but they weren't happy. Like Spo looked frustrated all year, and Butler looked confused all year. I mean, they did. They weren't happy.
Well, because they were missing shots. With the over-reliance on the three-point shot in the NBA today, I mean, you can't afford to be a 20% shooting team or to be among the lowest teams in the league. I mean, look, you're hoisting 40, 50 3-point shots a game. So of those, if you're going to make like 12, you do the math, right? If you hit 50% from the field on 2-point shots and you hoisted 50, you've got 50 points.
Yep.
If you're hitting 12 3-pointers out of 50, you've only got 36. I mean, that's a big differential. That's double digits. So it totally defeats the purpose of making use of the 3-point shot. In fact, it gets to the point of being detrimental, right? Like when you're yelling at any chucker, "Hey, pass the ball inside."
Exactly.
How about one time just throwing the ball inside? Get it to the big man. Let the big dog eat.
Exactly.
Well, and you're right about the Celtics. I mean, they don't seem to have any alternative. I guess in the other series we saw them revert to taking the ball to the basket a little bit, both Brown and Tatum. But that hasn't been the case. They were just lobbing them up there. Being a guy that liked to chuck, if you're shooting without conviction, you're going to miss every time.
Oh, yeah.
If you're just lobbing a ball up there kind of lackadaisically and hoping it goes in because you're a decent shooter, you're not going to be effective at all. You have to believe that ball's going in every time, and that every shot you take, has you shouldn't even be attempting shots you don't believe have a shot to go in. They were just hoisting them up there. You could see it was just, okay, there's 3 seconds left on the shot clock. Let me just lob one up there, and it wasn't working. So, be very curious to see what happens tonight. I it's hard to envision that the Heat don't continue to dismantle the Boston Celtics, who seem to have thrown in the towel mentally on themselves, and a disgraceful effort in game number 3. That wasn't one of those things where something happened that made it obvious that they were going to lay a stinker, throwing a real clunker. I mean, it was just bad from the start, was it not? I mean, they never got it together at any juncture of that ball game until it was scrub time. And then, as we said, was that the ugliest collection of pasty white guys in NBA history on one team? Holy Mel Counts. It was like they put Counts and Finkel and who's the redheaded guy that everybody loved, Scalabrese.
Oh, Brian Scalabrine.
Yeah, Scalabrine.
Yeah.
Like every big white stiff they've ever had on the roster there for the Celtics was out there at the same time, including a couple of guards that you thought, how did these guys? They didn't even look like they could play in the Jewish Center League. They're guards on the Boston Celtics. Like when the Celtics get off the team bus, these guys are the first guys off. Get out of here. Got to be kidding me. All right, so that's all going on in Nets tonight. We have Scoop Skolnick going to help us analyze what's going on from 5 Reasons Sports Network. That's going to happen at about 8:20. It was great, like I said, seeing Jeff Conine beating the drum. I always like seeing Niner out there. A couple of other things happening. What do you make of this? I mean, we know the reasons why. I mean, it's all because of television money, which is fueling a large part of the financial windfall that the NFL has become. That they throw money at Roger Goodell. That would be, what kind of job is that, huh? Is it like being the Saudi prince, where they just lavish you with gifts?
It doesn't feel
television networks.
It feels very close to it.
I mean, you're selling oil. I mean, what is it? What can we do to be in your good favor, Mr. Goodell? The television network. So they're rolling up to his office there with wheelbarrows full of cash. And, he's being credited as if he was Pete Rozelle with saying, you know what, parody might work in this league. Okay, Pete. If everybody has a chance, then everybody's all in for the entire season. All right, makes some sense.
There you go.
And maybe it's working to a certain degree. But the NFL, a giant cash cow, we understand they're going to have to capitulate to a few sort of, what would seem to be reasonable demands of the television networks, because there is no way to anticipate what the good games are going to be at the end of the regular season, as we've often talked about. Schedule analysis is probably the dumbest, most futile mental exercise this side of learning calculus.
I hate it so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. So, here they hand out, and it seemed like the first year of the Thursday night games. What? I mean, did they stiff these guys? Did they just want them to fall on their face? Because Al Michaels is always lamenting before the game. His opening starts with, "Well, we got a real stinker for you tonight." Okay, Al. Maybe I'll just have another cocktail and go to bed. What do I need to watch this garbage for? And they were getting like really bad games, weren't they? For the most part, I especially what was it last year that those Thursday night games? I mean, the games of all any importance were already played, and they would, or coming up later in the week, and they would have just a complete stiff of a ball game. So now they've added in the possibility of flexing these Thursday night games. I guess a couple of them anyway, late in the season, so they can get more of a marquee matchup on those Thursday nighters.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, look, at what point do you consider the fans? No point, right? If you're the National Football League or any of these major league entities, because I mean, people make their plans for this kind of stuff like months in advance.
Yes.
Years in advance, sometimes not years, but when the schedule comes out, they immediately, okay, good. I mean, my team's playing in whatever they're playing in Miami on a Thursday night. I'm going.
Yep.
You're in Green Bay. You're thinking, okay, you start making plans. You book hotel rooms and all of this stuff, and then at the last second, they said they'd have to have a month's notice to flex the game. So, is that going to be a reasonable influence to line up the right games? Can you anticipate a month out which game you'd like to see on a Thursday night as opposed to some meaningless game between two sub 500 clubs? What do you think, Lubie?
Yes.
Are you a fan of this? I mean, does the NFL, obviously they have the right to do it. They're going to do it. Where does that leave you in terms of being a consumer?
I like the idea of flexing more games. I don't know what a month. We do that all the time in the NFL. It's week to week. Like a lot changes in the span of a month. I don't know what the fuck the NFL's doing.
Well, I mean, they're trying to maximize whatever audience they would have for those games. For you have to kind of take care of your partners. Do you not?
Yes.
You can't just constantly lay this stiff out there on a Thursday night and expect people to subscribe to Amazon. I mean, how's Jeff Bezos going to pay for that yacht? Does he still? He must still get a big piece of Amazon, no? Bezos, he's not the CEO anymore, though.
I think he's involved in some way.
You see what he did? I mean, he's got this woman has him whipped into shape, literally.
Yeah. What do you mean?
This Laura Sanchez.
Totally different. He looks nothing like he used to look.
He looks like he could be. There he is on the cover of the New York Post. There, you see the guy with the. I mean, that's a decent body for like a 60-year-old guy. No,
he looks like he's on friggin' roids. Like
doesn't
he? Nothing like himself. It's friggin' weird.
Like he photoshopped this thing and put his head on the body of Brooks Koepka or something. No? The guy looks great. I guess if you have $150 billion, you can spend some time working on your physique. But you would think he'd be working on it more like we are on the Mike Mayo Lunchbox Show, just feeding our faces like we did yesterday.
Exactly.
Temple Street Eatery, very nice there in Fort Lauderdale. Did you like that, Lubie?
That place was great. That's
those pastries you brought home. I mean, whatever those were, those guava and cheese empanadas. Are those empanadas?
Yes.
Fantastic.
It is an empanada. I like that place because it combines two worlds that my wife loves. I'm not Mr. Ramen, but my wife loves.
Yeah, I could live without a whole bunch of ramen there.
Loves ramen.
You see that one guy? He had like the stuff on his face.
It's just
guy that we met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He must have stuck his face in the bowl, kind of Mayo style. That was funny too, because we were kind of picking at that bowl, and then Mayo just picks it up and drinks it. That was kind of. He finally reverted back to being himself. He
can't help himself.
I know what happened to this guy. I mean, is he in love? What's the deal? I'm not sure.
I love that
all of a sudden he's well mannered. He eats everything like he was Emily Post, for God's sake. Never mind the New York Post.
God.
But anyway, that's that. Bezos, man, looking good.
He looks like he's on something. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, this woman's, you would have to say, has been somewhat of a positive influence after he dumped the wife. $35 billion he had to give her in a divorce settlement. $35 billion, and it was nothing. A song and a dance. All right, so tonight, and this was interesting too, because it is old school to get a newspaper, but where else do you have all of this at your fingertips, Libby, including some real analysis on what's happening? Aaron Judge is on fire right now. Have you seen this, Libby? Have you been tracking Aaron Judge of late?
All I've heard them do is trash the Yankees.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Yankees now are getting some love because they just went 6-1 on a road trip. Aaron Judge has been on fire, and they're talking about after he came off the injured list. In the 11 games since, he's hitting .405, slugging .976, got on base 52% of the time, hit 7 homers and driven in 16 in 11 games. On fire. Today, though, I mean, the Yankees go against the Orioles, who we mentioned yesterday are the sleeper big story in Major League Baseball, with a record of 31-19 and tracking in there. Yeah, I mean, ahead of the Yankees in the standings, the Baltimore Orioles. So how about this? I mean, would you be tempted to take a little sniff with the Orioles today? Because the Yankees are going to send out Garrett Cole, 5-0, 2.01 earned run average. And he's going against some schmank here that I never heard of. Kyle Bradish. You ever heard of Kyle Bradish?
No clue.
2-1, 3.90 earned run average. Yankees on fire. The Orioles are doing well. Here's a stat for you, Libby. You want the stat of the day?
Sure.
0.38.
Okay.
That's the earned run average for Orioles reliever Yennier Cano. The 29-year-old reliever has struck out 26 and not walked a batter in 23 1/3 this season. That's getting it done, my friend. An 0.38 earned run average. So, interesting series gets underway tonight there. The Yankees trying to sort of continue a little bit of a move forward. But that's where the regular season has some meaning, right? Where, okay, you can get off to a slow start, but, you want to see a team kind of round into form. And in baseball, across 162, the cream rises to the top. Basketball, I think the Heat are what we thought they were during the regular season. Not very good. Just a remarkable turnaround where all of a sudden everybody found their shot at the same time. And puts them in a position to go against the Denver Nuggets for the championship. What do you think about this? Narduzzi, one of our favorites there, the head coach at Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Blasting your man, Deion Sanders, the former Florida State star. Blasting him for use of the transfer portal. Saying it's a disgrace what he's done. He's made a mockery of it. Like 50 Colorado players were entered into the transfer portal, and he's brought in, I think, 47 players.
But I think it's a joke. I love that he's not holding back because his team's going to be horrendous.
Complete roster overhaul, yes.
I love it. I think he's going to be horrendous, and I can't wait for people to finally realize that he has no idea what he's doing. He just is a used car salesman. He just talks a lot of shit, but actually has no idea what he doesn't coach. Like, you want to be Bobby Bowden after 50 years of coaching and be a figurehead, fine.
Right. Go to a couple of luncheons, greet some babies.
First and second, like, he didn't do anything at Jackson State. Like, he didn't do anything. He wasn't coaching. He was a big enough name to get some talent there, and they still lost every year. They didn't go undefeated. Colorado was a disaster. He then does an overhaul of the roster. So he's going to start from scratch in college, which I can't even imagine. Okay.
Well, I mean, if he's not going to do any coaching, you're going to have a real disjointed effort this year. 47 guys through the transfer portal come in. 51 have left via the transfer portal so far. NFL, more investigations into gambling. Is it not their own fault? It's my own fault, baby. The old blues song. All right, Johnny Winter, you can hear him belting that out. It's my own fault, baby. Did they not encourage everybody to get involved in this?
Yeah. I don't mind it. I just don't understand what they're doing. Like, they still want to have their cake. They still want to say gambling is bad, don't gamble, while making it.
While Peyton Manning is standing up there going, I bet my brains out last night. Way to go, Peyton.
They're in partnerships with these, like, literally in partnerships.
Yeah.
So I don't understand, like, how you expect your players to not. I mean,
to dealing with the devil.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want them to go the other way and go, oh, gambling. It's not that. It's pick. If you're in with gambling, then set rules for your players. Obviously, you don't want them betting on their own teams. Fine. But you can't say they can't bet on a Tuesday night NBA game.
Goodell embracing gambling after the position that the NFL had on this. would be like seeing Ron DeSantis at a drag queen show, backstage, greeting people as they came off, and congratulating them on putting on a good piece of entertainment. They couldn't have been any more diametrically opposed to the concept made them sick, right? Team in Vegas, forget about it. We'll never touch that place. As if, Vegas would be, I would imagine, the most welcome place, right? Because that's the least likely to be influenced by, illegal gambling, since gambling is legal there. So you're probably not going to have people using unscrupulous methods to try and cash a ticket on a game, as in, the implication is always that some mobster is paid off the kicker to go ahead and shank one. As long as you're 0 for 3 by halftime, we're okay. All right.
Oh, guys, that's dumb because there's so much money in it. They're just gambling for fun on things that have nothing to do with what they're playing. I don't see the issue. You want to say slippery slope? Well, yeah. Again, you brought in gambling. You made gambling okay, so pick.
Yeah.
Like, of course, it's slippery slope. Like, it is what it is.
You're going to. I mean, there are inherent problems with embracing this. There just are. That you're going to throw some shade over the integrity of the game. Although, the thing is, it became impossible to conceive of, especially now with name, image, and likeness in the college game. I mean, if some kid's getting $500,000 like Nigel Pack to play ball in college, then how are you going to influence him to shave a few points? You can't.
That's the whole point. Is it actually regulates it? You're making enough money. It's dumb.
Yeah.
Points. I don't know what to do with college, but it's the pros is the one that bothers me.
Right. This Ridley guy was making what? Was he making like several $1 million, like over $10 million a year?
Yes, he had just gotten a big deal, and he was moved to Jacksonville, and he was supposed to be a star for a team that ended up being good. Why?
How are you going to? How much money do you have to give a guy to go ahead and say, hey, you know what, you can win the game, but don't win by more than 4? I mean, that's so old school, so 50s.
I don't know.
You have to be kidding me. I mean, you couldn't possibly pay these guys enough money to shave points. Although, a weird thing about guys with huge money, this always struck me as being odd. We used to pay guests on the ill-fated sports show that we did out of a certain Native American casino many years ago. And we paid the guests $400 for showing up. Right, Lubie, just kind of a token gesture, like thank you for going out of your way. I mean, this place wasn't exactly on Main Street. You were out there. You had to take like a swamp boat to get there at the time. And, the whole setup, they didn't have the hotels or any of this stuff. Just had a little, shell tent. Was essentially the place. So we gave him $400. And what surprised me, we had a guy that came on the show twice. And both times he cashed a $400 check like a half hour later at a check cashing store nearby, out in the middle of the Everglades there. And you're thinking, really? Why would a guy do that? But then I realized they probably want to hide every dollar from whoever their spouse is.
Yep.
Because you're thinking, why? That's something I would do. Like, I mean, get a check for $400 and then immediately go cash it somewhere. But and even pay the juice. What are they charging you at a check cashing store to cash a check?
No idea.
Is it 6 points, something like that?
Never done it.
Never? You've never cashed a check at a check cashing store?
No, I've gone to the one that does money vouchers or whatever. Not vouchers. What the hell are they called? Money.
There's a place called Moe's Deli. We used to cash checks at occasionally.
I've never done. I went to that.
I think there still is a Moe's Deli. I'm not sure if it's the same people, but it's in a different location.
I've never done that. I've gone to Amscott to send money orders because they actually do money orders for free, I think.
Yeah.
So I've gone to Amscott. I've never actually checked. I have a bank account. Why would I?
Exactly.
I've always had a bank account.
I mean, you're looking at some guy that's probably making, $5-6 million a year, and you're wondering why he would run out immediately and cash a $400 check. Probably, I mean, if I was the guy, I would have cashed it because I would have thought, well, consider the source.
Exactly.
That there's a good chance that by tomorrow, these guys might be under arrest for putting on this cable television show. Can you imagine the things people get away with? My dad always said that the Forrest family, we never get away with anything. That's for sure. All right, maybe we can get away with a couple of championships. We'll see. That would be exciting. I mean, the Stanley Cup seems very realistic to me. I don't know about the Heat versus Denver. If it comes to that, which I believe that it will, and Denver gets in, they just looked so sharp in spots against the Lakers. It was almost as if they toyed with the team that we were telling you all season long that we don't sleep on the Lakers, who played well. I mean, look, a lot of people thought Golden State was going to somehow rise up and win the West. No?
Yeah. What do you mean? They're the defending champion.
Yeah.
They were going to get it together. They took out the Suns, right? When
Took out the Denver took out the Suns.
I can't. It all has gotten jumbled together.
Golden State was the 6th seed. They took out Sacramento.
The Kings. They took out the Kings.
Yeah.
They people thought they were coming together. The Lakers, people counted them out in every series. I mean, what they did was impressive that they were able to come together. Last night was weird because LeBron went.
Have we seen the last of LeBron James? Is that possible?
I don't know. It's weird because he played great in that first half. They did what they needed to do. They had control of the game, and within like a few minutes, Nuggets were like, all right. Yeah, we're good. And then even at the end, like the Lakers hung around. It was like, oh, good for them.
Well, LeBron had a chance to tie it at the end of the game and got tied up. And, they didn't call the foul, which I don't believe it was a foul, but normally he would have got the call in that spot. And it was Jamal Murray who made a really good defensive play, in addition to being constantly among the leading scorers, if not the leading scorer, for Denver in the series. Those two guys clicking and role players playing well. Are they better than the Miami Heat? That'll be the question that hopefully we have to answer after tonight. All right, Scoop Skolnick's going to help us answer a lot of those questions. He's coming up from 5 Reasons Sports Network. Don't forget about all the good things happening in Hialeah Park. And please check the calendar of events there because it is spectacular. They have that wine and food tasting. That's a real Mayo-esque type of event that's coming up. Very fancy schmancy. Going to be a lot of fun. And they always put on a good show there. Their food and beverage department is fantastic. Plus, not ballpark prices, right? Now you're amazed. You're stunned. You're thinking, oh, I won't say anything because they obviously undercharged me. And then you look at the pricing and you're thinking, that can't be $5. It's ridiculous. They really want you to have a good time in Hialeah Park. That's why it is so successful and has been for many years now. A lot of people thought that this would never work. I remember John Brunetti Sr. being subject to the same kind of ridicule, although, not necessarily so publicly, but, people were saying, has the old man lost it? When he said he was going to start a casino. You're like, wait, really? I mean, this place has been shut down for like 5 years. What are you going to do here? Couldn't have been a better integration and synthesis of old and new. Really phenomenal. And so happy to see the way it was not only preserved, but the way that it's thriving, the casino at Hialeah Park. Got the champion simulcasting room, so you get the best. I mean, the ponies going all day long and all night as well. There are other locations, too, where, they'll have like betting machines and screens. So you don't necessarily even have to be in Champions, although that's where you want to be if you're a horse player. Poker room is great. I mean, I've played poker there a couple of times and really well run. I'm not even a poker player. They had a couple of like celebrity tournaments that they had going, charity events, and I participated. I held my own for a little while, even though I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm one of these guys. I want to bluff every pot, right? I'm all in every pot till they catch on. And, but using the force and the magnitude of your big pile of cash, like you were Jeff Bezos sitting on that yacht there and going, Laura, can you get me another drink? Yeah, the ring is yours. What are you talking about? Hialeah Park, you can be a big shot there, or you can be just some humble player that, is wearing like a Groucho Marx mask and making a big score because they have all types of different games going on. And, they have the tournaments and everything else. Just a really well-run poker room, very professional. And then Steve Calabro, one of the greats in the industry, casino manager, he's done a dynamite job there. Check it out for yourself. Get a player's card. You're going to love it. And it's always a good time, always a great vibe. That party that they have there, I guess they do it Friday and Saturday nights out there on the patio, is brilliant. All kinds of amenities for the players' card holders, including opportunities for free valet parking and food and lots of free play. So check it out. Really, one of the best-run casinos you'll find anywhere in the world. Beautiful Hialeah Park. All right, coming back with more here on the Defo Show. We'll take you up until 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock today. Mike Mayo, you and Mike are going to be out there at Shenanigans.
No, we change of plans. We're home today.
Oh, okay.
We're home today.
Good, because that's where I was going to be anyway.
Be able to join us. Tomorrow we'll be out at Even Keel Fish Shack, and Thursday Delaware Chicken Farm and Seafood Market, and then Friday our
Gulfstream Park, man.
Gulfstream Park.
Those sessions have been brilliant, man.
You guys are actually doing decently well.
Yeah. I mean, I got lucky a little bit last week. I blew with the Preakness because I tried to. I didn't see a lot of ways to make money on a race unless you just wanted to hammer the favorites. and there weren't that many choices, so it was going to be hard to make a score. We tried something; it didn't work. But I hit a previous race on my way out the door there at Woodbine, which has been a track. I should move to Canada, Louis. A lot of people think that anyway. I considered it in 1968. I really did. When you had to decide, do I really want to go to Vietnam? What if I don't get accepted to college? Then what? I would not have been good in Vietnam, Louis. I think I was a little naive at the time to, imagine being thrown into that as like an 18, 19-year-old kid. You can't possibly. You talk about no way to anticipate. That would have been a really wild ride. But for some reason, Woodbine in Toronto is my easiest track to hit of late. Woodbine and all the negative things we've said about Canadians. It probably shouldn't work that way, but that's the way it's been going for me. So managed to get out on Preakness Day, and still. What do you think the Belmont will look like? Forte coming back, I think.
Right? Would Forte
Mage going to wait for the Saratoga meet. I don't know. Where are these new shooters coming from? And does National Treasure come back and run, try to go wire to wire? It can happen at 1.5 miles. It's almost advantageous sometimes to beat a lone speed. Well, it often is, but even at 1.5 miles, you would figure the horses that come from behind would win, right? Because they have longer distance. Not the case, Louis. Front runners, very impactful there. Don't know. That's 3 weeks away. And then we got the summer season coming up with our good friend Frank Miramonte getting his first chance to call on a permanent basis at Saratoga. Nice pair of gigs this guy had. I remember when he called me the first time, he was working for like Scorephone, doing recreations of stretch calls from Pompano Park. Now he's got Saratoga and Santa Anita, so the man has made some progress over the years. Relentless when it comes to pursuing his goals. I think we need to incorporate a little of that into our game, Louis. Huh? All right, we're coming back with more. Scoop Skolnick going to join us in just a moment. Mike Mayo's Lunchbox at 12 o'clock, and back with more on the Defo Show in a moment. Now that.
The time.
Bobrovsky, right? Name was Mud. It's 8:14. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in Style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Are you looking to buy your first home? Have you been turned down for a loan? Do you need to refinance or get money out of your home? Call Michael Kodzi, CEO of Choice Mortgage. He's been helping the South Florida community get mortgages for 30 years.
Hi, this is Michael Kodzi, CEO of Choice Mortgage. We have the most competitive fixed rates in the market. Call me 24/7, 561-441-2730. And remember, I don't just work banking hours. To make the right choice for your home, call Choice Mortgage today.
The world, if my point was ever going to be embellished and going to be proven true, the world has gotten me sugar now.
Grab a bagel and a schmear, plus some Defo and Lubie. Welcome back to the Defo Show.
Welcome back to Euphoriaville here in terms of the sports landscape. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie. Lubitz coming to you from South Florida here on South Florida Live. We've never seen anything like it. The odds are in our favor, Lubie. Odds are in our favor, and your horse naturally run, right? The old Carly Simon song. You're so vain. Odds are in our favor. 3-0 leads. It's now 150-0 in the NBA. 3-0 series leads. 150 times the situation has occurred. 150 times the team that was up 3-0 went on to win the series. In the NHL, it's a little bit more of a possibility that there is a slight gray area there. Well, a couple of things. I mean, for the Carolina Hurricanes, although very, very prohibitive, this situation has happened, let's see, I believe 204 times. And the team that was down 3-0 has won 4 times.
Well, do they talk? I remember that stat from last round, but that's the playoffs overall. Like, what about the conference finals? Because again, as series go, so goes pressure. I'm curious how much of that is actually not just like a first round series and it's like how much.
Is it impossible to see? Let's look at it this way: is it impossible to see Carolina coming back and winning the next 3 games? I mean, have they been out of this series? Absolutely not. We had the brilliant deduction after 7 periods of hockey in the first game that these 2 teams were relatively even.
Yes.
You would have to say that save for Bobrovsky and the fact that Tkachuk has risen to the occasion, whereas some of the Carolina scorers have not, including your man Sebastian Aho.
He's trying.
You touted, coming into the series as a possible differential, Mr. Don Cherry. And, he had several chances at point-blank range against Bobrovsky and couldn't convert any of them. Not that he played a terrible game. I mean, the guy was working, but couldn't get anything to go. And you mentioned this earlier, and it's true. Just the abstract nature of the sport. There's a bigger luck element involved in hockey in the scoring plays than there is probably in any other sport. Because I mean, when you see these deflections and the way they clank off the post, think about the differentials that come about, and how huge, especially in this series. No team is led by more than 1 goal at any time, at any point in the series. It's been a 1-goal differential at best, and you lose 2 overtime games at home and then a 1-0 game when your team was just firing pucks at this guy. It was Gary Gilmore, Utah firing squad. Unbelievable. Ready? Aim. Her. Gilmore, telling the warden there, look, I don't need the blindfold. And you know what? Stick that cigarette up your ass. That's the way to go out the door, my friend. Not that, he wasn't a heinous criminal who deserved every bullet that riddled his body that day. Bobrovsky may have been that. Although, it was like they outfitted Gilmore in pads, trotted him out there. But did they do that in a backyard against a brick wall, man? And that is really old school, the Utah firing squad, the last guy to be put to death in that fashion. And last night, you would have thought that this was what they were trying to replicate, right? Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, following the national anthem, we will replicate the Gary Gilmore firing squad execution.
Oh, no. I mean, they had a ton of times where not only they were at the Panthers' end, but there was the scrum in front of the net, which is the fucking scariest thing, especially
right. You're expecting to see a puck slip between the guy's legs there, like it came out of his ass and scored its way over the blue line by the slightest of margins. I mean, they had a lot of pressure on them, that's for sure. All right, let's do this. Let's transition back into some hoops here because we're juggling these 2 stories. It's amazing, isn't it? Scoop, I mean, you've been here a long. How many years, Scoop, have you been here? Like 30?
85.
Is it that long? You're a young man. I mean, I've been here 42 years. One of my initial encounters here was that 83 Hurricanes football team, which, Howard warned us about the Fumblerooski. And I still have those words ringing in my ear. We're going to have to watch out for Dean Steinkuhler and the Fumblerooski. And sure enough, he does it. He pulls it off, and it looks like the championship's going up in smoke. But that was an improbable story. They kind of came out of nowhere from distinction to championship team. Have you seen anything like this? I mean, and do we have to, put the parenthetical out there about the 2 college basketball teams in the Final Four?
I mean, we can. I think that these 2 stories are so paired. If you look at the Panthers and Heat stories, they're essentially the same story, which is just insane. I mean, it's not just the 8 seed thing, although obviously this is unprecedented for 2 teams who are 8 seeds to be doing this, but it's also just even the parallels between players on the teams. You have Tkachuk and Butler doing similar things as kind of alpha leaders, right?
Yes.
to the point that Butler's even wearing Kachuk's jersey.
That's funny. Yeah, think about that.
You have Bam and Barkov, both of whom have been really, really, really good regular season players, both beloved by the fans, but both also criticized at times for not doing enough in the postseason. And, here both of them are making major, two-way contributions. And then you have, the craziest part of this is you have the redemption stories. On one side, you have, Bobrovsky, who, I was at one of the games in the Bruins series. Well, the first game he got in when they lost.
Yes.
And it's not just that the Bruins fans, of which there were many, were chanting 10 million at him. The Panthers fans were too.
Yeah. They were throwing phony money instead of rats at this guy.
Right. And then on the other side, you have Kyle Lowry, who we didn't even know if he was going to play again for them this year, whose contract was considered a disaster. And the same for Duncan Robinson. And both guys are contributing in the rotation significantly right now, not to the degree that Bobrovsky is for the Panthers, but still, it's both redemption stories, and then it's also all the close games for both, the clutch wins for both, and then the fact that the part that I like about it is that sometimes if you have a run, the Heat are obviously the more established, more popular team in town, so it would have been very possible for the Panthers' success to kind of get lost with the Heat success, but it's just sort of what's happening with the Marlins right now, where nobody's paying any attention, even though they're actually playing above their heads. But actually, the Heat have kind of taken the Panthers along for the ride, where, I put this thread on Twitter the other day about asking Heat and Dolphin fans, people are primarily Heat and Dolphin fans, whether or not they've gotten caught up in the Panther thing. And I got 300 replies. They're literally educating an entire market about hockey right now, and a lot of Heat fans are being educated about it. So it's been really cool. It's almost like you just don't expect either of them to lose at this point. I don't even know how we got here, because you expected them to lose a lot during the regular season, both teams.
Well,
it's
really interesting, because we were talking about, all of this analysis is largely based on expectations, which are conjured up by who? The people that are doing the analysis. But you had reason to believe that both of these teams would be good in the regular season, because, the Panthers were coming off their best year from a regular season standpoint, President's Trophy and Cardiac Kids, all the comebacks, and they made a deal that you would think would make them better. And the Heat were, an eyelash away from going to the finals last year. We forget about that. They both had very deflating, perplexing seasons during the regular season, right up to the end.
Right.
So, that fuels the improbability of what's happening now to an even greater level.
Yeah, and you mentioned right up to the end. The Panthers clinched a playoff spot in the second to last game of the season.
Yes.
And the Heat had to survive, and rally in the fourth quarter against Chicago.
In the play-in.
Yeah.
Second playing game. Yeah.
It's nuts.
I don't even know where to go with it at this point. Like I said, it's defying everything. It's just like when teams get on a roll, but to see it happening on parallel tracks right now every other night. I don't know what fans are. If the Heat close this thing out tonight, and then we've got a few days. I don't know. Heat fans are they're expecting wins every single time they're out there. They're going to go 7 days without a win. And it's funny now, because I think this is where it may diverge a little bit, because the Heat are going to be underdogs in the finals without question.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Maybe rightfully so. I would say, just based on what I've been watching.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now the Panthers may not be. If you look at the Panther situation, they've already sort of taken out most of the teams. So it may be a little bit different, where there may be more expectations on the hockey side than the basketball side in the final. But we'll see. And that may be where it kind of returns to what we thought, because it's funny. I was on Channel 7 before playoffs started for both teams. I was doing a Heat segment. And Josh Moser asked me, he says, which team has a better chance to get out of the first round? And I said, I think the Panthers do, because hockey is more variable. Okay, so, the playoffs, things just sort of happen. In basketball, you don't see this a lot, because, the better team in basketball tends to win. Here's the thing I didn't account for. The Heat being the better team in every series.
Yeah. It's amazing what's happened. How did this come about? From the worst shooting, or among the worst shooting teams from 3-point range during the regular season, We were talking about this where, aside from Butler and Adebayo in that last ball game versus the 1 for 14 from 3-point range from Tatum and Brown, you had 25 of 36 from, Vincent, Martin, and Robinson. That's a 70% clip on a large volume of 3-point shots.
It's crazy. It's just, and also if you look at their top 6 3-point shooters, take Tyler out obviously because he hasn't played enough, but the top 6 3-point shooters, they're all shooting higher percentages, and not just by a little than they did in the regular season. All of them. It's not like, okay, 3 or 4 carrying them into, no, literally all of them. Okay, Shrews somewhat, but Robinson for sure, Vincent for sure, Lowry for sure, Love, Martin, all of them. And I that's the part of this where it's like, okay, well, they progressed back to the mean, right? But I'm sorry, this was not the mean this year. Like, okay, it was maybe the mean for the previous year, but once you go an entire season shooting poorly,
bricklayers, yes,
right, it's no longer progressing to the mean. That's not the mean. This is, but again, I don't. When you watch their process, that's the thing. It's like I'm not expecting it to stop now. Like
it's gathering momentum more so.
Right.
Than
right.
Yeah.
So it just looks. It's an avalanche at this point, and it's not just that they're winning. They're literally making these teams think about their own identities. Like,
yes.
like Milwaukee. You've got Giannis on,
they fired their coach.
What the hell is Giannis talking about? He's like Sastra.
But firing the coach. And the Knicks, like Julius Randle has gone from like celebrated as the king of New York to like persona non grata. Yeah. Like, and now in this series, like the Tatum Brown thing is probably over after this series. I think they're probably going to end up, Jalen's, I think, going to be looking for a trade the way things are going. And there's no way Missoula can survive this, I don't think. So
you think he gets canned too?
I think so too. I think Spo is fired.
He get 2 out of 3 coaches fired from the series that they were in, and Thibodeau looked like a schlep, so he might consider leaving also.
Right. It's just like Spo keeps complaining about all these coaches getting fired. He's literally the one fired.
That's the reason, yeah. Right. Like my ex-wife. Oh, you can relate to that, yeah.
Oh yeah. Right. Well, yeah. So it's just I don't even know what to do with it. And on the Panther side, the Panthers fans wanted to fire their coach the entire year, right? Yes. So
who is this guy?
Right, and now he screams at them in one game, and ever since they haven't lost. Like they, it's there is a point where it's just like you have to just throw the analysis out and say that none of this makes any sense. But again, the teams are good. Like it's not like they're not. You look at the Panthers just specifically, like. They've got elite forwards on that team, and they have a goaltender. They paid that guy for a reason. Like, he had been a terrific goaltender. He just wasn't here.
He's been awakened.
Right, until now. And on the Heat side, like, you're like, okay, you've got a star who plays better at this time of year. You've got a two-way player in Bam who does everything for you, and you're shooting the ball well, you're connected defensively. Okay, it makes sense. But we'll see again if it makes sense in the next series, because that team they're going to see on the other side is really good. It's title worthy for sure. And reminds me a little bit in terms of the way they carry themselves of the Spurs teams that gave the Heat so much trouble during the Big Three era. So it's going to be a very interesting series.
Look, again, Defo always talks about us trying to explain the inexplicable. Panthers, I guess it's a little easier. You make that trade that throws off kilter the entire group. Kachuk is better, but he's different, right? He's more a leader by voice, whereas Huberdeau, you didn't know what the fuck he even sounded like half the time. And then by play as well. And then you bring in a new coach, and Maurice is like losing his coach ever, so you don't know what he's going to do. And it was a different
style. Red clots. It's amazing.
So that takes time, and it just gelled at the right time, maybe. They played strong that last month. Like, the Heat, the thing is, they never did.
No.
Never. So now I'll ask you this as a guy who covers them really closely and knows the organization. I don't know if they're waiting in the weeds, but Spoelstra said a lot of weird shit all year. When you would think he would be ripping his hair out, he's like, we're really enjoying being It's like
he's quoting J. Cole about.
It's like Gwyneth Paltrow became the coach.
You've been around Riley a long time there, Spo. You're saying a lot of weird shit that you're too young to be really saying, but we're the process of losing. We're just, it's like, okay, he knows something. It was weird.
Right.
And look, they've been there before, right? And we've seen teams do this where they use a regular season to get into shape and health. They had a lot of health. Lowry was not healthy. He swore he wasn't. And now he like, can that attribute to this, or it's really just who the hell knows? And they just
no. I mean, it's some of it for sure. I mean, I think that Eric did see some signs behind the scenes that were positive that the team wasn't fracturing. But I think the idea that they were somehow not frustrated by this is incorrect. He was frustrated. They were frustrated. They were disconnected, disinterested to a certain degree. We talked about that. It's like they would get interested in a clutch game. Like if they got into a clutch game, then all of a sudden they would get interested. But look at the teams. I mean, it feels like another lifetime ago, but losing to Detroit at home, losing to San Antonio at home, losing to Orlando a couple times, losing to Charlotte twice on the road. I mean, it's, you know, if you're that's not something you're working stuff out. Okay. That's just like, you don't care, like to a certain degree, or you're just so disconnected that you can't make the thing work. And look, and there's also the stuff I've heard about behind the scenes about frustrations with roles and ambition and all that. So the fact that it all came just together now where it's like, oh yeah, well, this makes sense. I mean, I was saying the whole year that Kyle Lowry belonged off the bench. Like, you know, especially, you know, if you look at Gabe, he just plays better as a starter. They're 18-4 with him starting over the past two postseasons. Like, okay, that makes sense. True, you know, the Hero Strus thing. I mean, the reality is, and this is going to be the next real topic of conversation, and we hit it yesterday on the podcast, is this team's better when Max Strus starts than when Tyler Hero starts. It's not that Max Strus is a better player, but they're better. They just are. The roles are more defined. And Tyler with different lineups is better. It's better for him also. But they didn't feel they could do that before the season because you were giving this guy this huge extension. He wanted to start, and then he didn't really do anything to not deserve the starting role. He played at a high level. You know, he improved in a number of areas, and so, but it wasn't good for the team. And that was one of the frustrations. So, I mean, look, they were up against Milwaukee in that game one when Tyler got hurt, and he had 12 points. Okay, when he got hurt. Okay, he was playing well.
Yeah.
But I mean, is it reasonable to say that this run does not happen to this degree if he stays healthy? It is reasonable to say that because it wasn't working with him in that starting lineup this year. So would they have beaten Milwaukee with that group? Would they have, you know, then survived the Knicks? I don't know. We'll never know. Okay. I'm a little concerned for him that he's going to get blamed for everything if he comes back and things go off the rails here. But again, I don't know what role you put him in when he comes back. Yeah, he's not going to start. But he may be worked in. But I go back to 2009, 2010 finals, the year that Orlando was in the finals against
Lakers.
Yes, and Jameer Nelson was out for most of the postseason, and Rafer Alston started.
Yeah,
and they got to the finals, and Stan tried to jam Jameer back in the finals, and it blew up in his face, and he's admitted it since. So I suppose aware of that example, I'm sure, and I think he's gonna be very careful here.
Pretty wild stuff. Hey, a couple of things behind the scenes there. When you were, I remember when you were doing that big feature on Pat Riley, one of your previous spots, and Bleacher Report.
Yes,
and very in depth. I mean, does Pat Riley have a voodoo doll of Danny Ainge in his office? That would be question one.
Not that I saw one, but if you heard someone squeaking in the background, it was probably Dan.
How delightful, I mean, do you think this is in Riley world if he
smile
not only beats the Celtics, but embarrasses them and puts them into a state of total offseason chaos?
Team since a championship. Like, that was freaking weird. He was like smirking last game. It was weird.
Well, I mean, I think the only thing that would have been better was if the Lakers lined up on the other side, so he could have done the Knicks. He could have done. Yes. He could have done the Knicks, Celtics, Lakers trifecta here to win. It's hard to know what Pat's thinking because Pat literally dodged us the entire year because he didn't want to talk about this team.
Wow.
He hasn't spoken since July maybe.
Very uncharacteristic, Riley. I mean, come on. People pay big money to hear him speak. That's for sure. So we
Well,
certainly want to hear him. Yeah.
Well, he didn't even. I mean, even at Heat Family Fest, which was the first one in 4 years, he spoke. But we were told beforehand, don't ask basketball questions, and he wouldn't go that direction. This was like a team he didn't want to talk about. Honestly,
Wow.
I almost think he
It was a
afraid.
disgrace.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was afraid of what he was going to say. He was going to get asked about the Lowry and Robinson contracts and all that stuff. I think this has to be a complete surprise to him too. I'm sorry. There were. He told someone I did report. He was in a season ticket thing, but halfway through the season, and he told season ticket holders reported back that he said this has been one of his most frustrating seasons. So I don't think they can say now they saw this coming. They didn't. Okay, they didn't. They did. People I talked to in the front office during the year, they would say, be patient. Let's see what happens when we get healthy. We don't want to make, but they were trying to keep their powder dry to a certain extent. And I think Heat fans got all over them for that. If you look at the preseason, the off season, they really did have to make a decision between Caleb Martin and PJ Tucker. Once PJ wanted his full money, then they were going to try to fit them both in, but they only had one mid-level exception. So once PJ wanted his full money, it was like, okay, let's pivot. Let's get Caleb before he goes. That was the correct decision.
Yes.
Right.
Turned out well, yes. I mean, and they might have missed Tucker during the regular season. Because that was a component that was kind of missing for that team.
Yeah, they missed his edge. They did. But they also, and they knew they would, but they also knew that once the postseason happened, what happened last year was teams basically left PJ alone. And one of the things when they explained the decision to me at the time, they're like, we don't want to be 4-on-5 on offense. We think Caleb can give us something a little different. Now, Caleb's trajectory, which I've said, I think he can be a borderline star on it, and you're seeing it. He's unleashing a little bit more every time. To me, I don't look at him as a two-way undrafted guy anymore. To me, he is a core rotation piece for this team for years, potentially, and I think he can be a 17-point scorer next year. But they made the correct decision. Then you look at the trade deadline, they had some things they could have done.
You tried.
But when they were unloading the Dedmon contract, which was the whole purpose of the Dedmon contract, plus, by the way, they probably lost 4 games just because Spo played Dedmon this year. Okay, probably four. Seriously,
gotta showcase this stiff. Yeah,
there are 4 games that were directly attributable to his minutes. they were just completely. They were minus 13 in 7 minutes, and it's like, how are you going to recover from that?
Yeah,
but they could have traded. The thing is, they could have traded Dedmon and gotten a better piece back, but teams were asking for Strus or Martin. Not so much Vincent, but Strus or Martin. And so now looking back, I don't know who the exact player was, but I have a feeling about some. They were power forward types, okay? Now are we looking back, or you feel better about that? I mean, I guess if they don't re-sign Strus, maybe they could have included him in a trade, but certainly Martin, you're going to trade Martin a pick and Dedmon to make a slight upgrade at power forward. As it turns out, by not doing that, keeping their powder dry, then when Kevin Love, asked for buyout, which they had him on a list, not that they thought he would get buyout, but guys who could get bought out. So again, they couldn't see that coming for sure either, but it's not like it blindsided them that Kevin Love was bought out. So once that happened, they're like, okay, go. All right, now they wouldn't have done that if they had made a trade for power forward. So everything ended up breaking right, but it almost broke them in the process. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, so now they're here. The Kevin Love thing has worked out. Okay. Hero, sort of that situation kind of resolved itself without them having to do anything. And everybody's found their roles. And I just think those are the explanations. They still don't really explain everything, but those are the explanations.
Well, and it helps to make shots. We've been saying this. This has been our in-depth analysis that as opposed to missing shots and throwing boulders up there like they did all year,
right?
When you're hitting 70% with 3 guys on 35 attempts from 3-point range, you're probably going to be okay if your other guys, Adebayo and Butler are doing their thing. All right, a couple of things. Is it true? Did 5 Reasons investigate that Pat Riley was riding one of those rescue boats trying to fish Celtic bodies out of Biscayne Bay so that they could play a Game 4 and accommodate the fans? And short of digging up Red Auerbach and putting him on the bench like a weekend at Bernie's, how did the Celtics, shake off what they did? I mean, how big of an aberration was that? And what would be your expectation tonight? I mean, it's hard to anticipate the Heat not winning tonight, like you were saying.
Yeah, well, even Vegas finally. This is finally
Yeah.
over there.
They're tired of
nice.
taking these beatings. My God.
Yeah, I wish I was on the other side of those beatings, but didn't have the guts to play a lot of this. I'll say this. The thing that could be the issue tonight is, we're kind of talking like this is over, and
Yes.
do the
150 and 0. I believe it is 150 and 0.
Well, right
in this circumstance.
Well, no, that part is over. Yes, yeah. but we're all started talking like it's going to be over tonight, and I just wonder if they're going to come out with the Heat are going to come out with the kind of intensity that's required to close out a team. Again, it does feel like they've just let it go at this point. I don't think there's the leadership in that Boston locker room. I do not think Tatum is that guy at this point. And it's never seemed like he and Jalen have been completely connected, and now it's kind of like Jalen seems to have half a foot out the door. So it's hard to see, when you have Marcus Smart, the video, I don't know if you saw the video that was captured where Marcus Smart was basically telling Jimmy, we got you last year. Okay, then you're done once you start talking about that stuff. That's like, that reminds me of Gary Payne. I always remember being in Chicago, the year, I think it was a game 3, the year after the Heat won the championship. So it was those 07 playoffs. And I was there with Mike Wallace and George Sedano, and Gary Payton's coming off the court, and he's just cursing, I got my effing ring. I got my effing ring. And we're like, okay, this series is over with. Yeah. They got swept. Once guys, once you start talking about what happened last year, you're done for this year. Yes. So I think, I'm curious to see the effort from both teams. Miami can come out tonight and just blow them out of the water at the beginning, but I feel like if they leave them in the game, then you'll get a competitive effort because there is a certain amount of pride that ensues here. And the Celtics can talk themselves into this because they can say, if they can get one, we're going back to Boston. Okay, we get that one. And all of a sudden, the pressure does shift to Miami at that point. Okay, that is a 3-2 series. The pressure does shift back to the Heat. And really, you're kind of right back in the same situation that you were in against the Knicks, where you're trying to close out a game 6 at home. So, I mean, look, the Celtics team won 50-something games. They're certainly capable. So Miami better come out with the effort tonight. And you'll know it with Jimmy, I think. Usually Bam is their barometer to me, but you'll know it with Jimmy. Because if Jimmy comes out and he's passive and all the rest of this stuff, he's kind of waiting.
Lubie hates that, by the way. Drives him crazy.
Like he did it last game. It just worked out.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, he's trying to. It's a little weird now. He's trying to conserve himself in the middle of the Eastern Conference Finals, but it's been okay. Like it's worked. So we'll see what happens tonight. But yeah, they need to come out with good effort tonight. That's to me the biggest thing.
All right, and your chances of the Heat, assuming that they do that, are somehow with 4 shots at it, close out the series. Matched up now against Denver, who were challenged. I mean, it looks like the Lakers got blown out and embarrassed, but all of the games were winnable at some point by the Lakers. They get trounced in the third quarter last night, 36-16 after leading by 15 at halftime. What do you make of the matchup against Denver? And then I guess LeBron James hinted at Roberto Duran time that he was going to retire for the first time. Is he playing Tom Brady or just typical aftermath disappointment after losing, especially getting swept, losing this one in an embarrassing fashion after having a huge first half? Do you see him coming back to the NBA next year?
I do. I think this is disappointment, and I also think it's attention seeking to a certain degree.
A little sympathy for LeBron.
Yeah, I don't think he's done. He's talked so much about being in the league when his son's in the league. I find it hard to believe that now he's so close to that he's going to, especially he's still playing at a high level. He's not a top 5 guy anymore, but like
he was good. Yeah,
he
no
was
doubt.
good. He's in the top 10 somewhere, and so it's not like he's embarrassing himself. I don't think he's close to embarrassing himself.
No.
So I would expect he comes back. As far as the Miami-Denver matchup, look, I've got about 20 years of bad experiences in that city for the Heat. That was always like, it was funny. They would always put that game at the end of a 5-game road trip.
Oh, wow.
On the second night of a back-to-back. And it was always the game we knew Dwayne was going to skip because it was just like you weren't going to win there anyway. look, they're really good now, and that's the thing, and it's not just Jokic, and it's not just Murray, but the Brown and KCP additions, giving them two wings who can play both ways. Bruce Brown, I love Bruce Brown as a player. I loved him in Miami. KCP's won a championship with the Lakers. Michael Porter Jr. can give you that extra score.
Gordon has your fourth guy. The fact that Gordon has a fourth guy, he's a
that's the thing. When he was the first or second guy in Orlando, you're like, no, but yeah,
okay, but fourth
as your fourth guy, like they're really good. They're really well coached. They know what their roles are, and I'll say this, Bam, Jokic is the one guy in the league he just does not have an answer for. And not that anybody does, but it's just. He doesn't play his game against him, and we're gonna have to. That's the key to this series for sure. If it gets there, but I mean, they're gonna be picked against, and it's gonna be legitimate this time. It's not gonna be based on reputation. They remind me a little bit of those, like I said, those Spurs teams that the Heat would face in the Big Three era, where they just don't get a lot of attention, but they play really, really high level basketball. They'll be worthy champions if they beat Miami, but Miami is going to try to get them in the mud. They're going to try to grind the thing down. A lot of it is going to come down to shooting. I will say the one thing that's good about the finals is there's a lot of days off.
Yes,
I think there's like 2 pockets of 3 days off between games, and there's a couple or 2 days off and 2 of 1 day off. It's really good for Jimmy at this stage of the season. So he's just going to have to be the best player in the world, and I he's capable of it. We'll see if he can do it again. It's a little different because he's not going to be going against the other best player on the other team like he does against Tatum or others, or he did against Randall or guarding Brunson. He's not going to see Jokic a whole lot. He's not going to guard him like LeBron has guarded him at times this series. He's just, he's going to have to deal with Aaron Gordon. He's going to have to deal with Bruce Brown, with KCP. They're going to throw these different players at him, and he's going to have to be great. But it may be one of these things where we remember this run, like what a run that was. They just a little bit like, I hate to say it, the 99 Knicks, where they as an 8 seed, they beat the Heat, they beat Indiana, they got to the finals, and then they just saw a Spurs team that I remember watching those games at Gatsby's and Davey when I used to. They were just too good at that point, and that may be the case this time, but again. Even though they'll be prohibitive underdogs, I don't know that I'd bet for them, but I wouldn't bet against them right now.
It's hard to discount them. That's for sure. Although watching Denver, they appear to be razor sharp.
Oh, they're great
right now. I mean, they have spurted in some of those games against the Lakers to come up with their wins, but the spurts were so impressive that they're going to be a tough team to contend with. Definitely with. Possibility of 4 of 7 games being in that mile-high city, which, as you say, very prohibitive. You see a lot of teams get off to just horrible starts there, as they're wheezing and on respirators while trying to contend with the atmosphere. All right, just one last thing, Scoop, man. We always appreciate your time, but I thought it was odd yesterday. I was looking at all of this retirement stuff about Carmelo Anthony. When did he last play? In the 2010 season? I mean, I thought he was gone. Why was it necessary for him to make this official since he didn't play this year?
Yeah, I think that there was talk of him trying to return.
Oh, yeah? Wow.
Yeah, throughout the year that he might try to come back. I was a little surprised, honestly, that a team didn't take a flyer on him just because he didn't play that badly with Portland in sort of one of his stints there. And look, he was the number 2 overall pick in a draft that included LeBron. He was one of the 2 guys left from the 2003 draft. I mean, there's significance to it. He never won a championship, obviously, but he was their best player on some Team USA squads in international play, where he played at a really high level there. Won a championship, obviously, at Syracuse. So going back, he can declare himself.
Thank God he won one.
Well, right.
That's our only one. 50 years of Jimmy B whining and convention about everything.
That's the one you needed, that kind of player to win it. Yeah, no, I know. But the thing about him is, to me, he's kind of a complicated figure in some ways, because I think he chose the career path he had. He could have been a champion. If you look at it, it all kind of goes back to that decision where he forced his way out of Denver, speaking of Denver, but couldn't wait and wanted all his money. And so because of that, they had to trade half the Knicks roster to get him. And if they hadn't traded Gallinari and the others that they had at the time, Mazdov, Gallinari, and there was a forward, Wilson Chandler. If they hadn't traded all those players, then, they might have a chance to win something in New York, as opposed to just kind of being a second-round flame-out, or first-round flame-out and a second-round flame-out a couple of the years he was there. I also think to a certain degree he was a little overrated over the course of his career. It's funny, not that he wasn't great, but if you line up his numbers, I did this before his decline. If you lined up his numbers and Alex English's numbers over the course of their career, they were virtually identical. Speaking of another Denver player. Virtually identical, but Alex English never got the kind of shine that Carmelo Anthony got. And again, part of it is because Carmelo ended up in New York. But they were the same player. But nobody, you wouldn't put Alex English in LeBron's class. But there were times over the course of the day you were putting Carmelo in. So I have great respect for what he accomplished. I feel like he could have accomplished more, but he wanted the money. He could have gone to Chicago. There was a chance for him to go to Chicago to play with those Rose Noah teams. And again, that was a potential champion.
Oh, Jesus.
But he re-signed to New York for the money and to be in that city. And as a result, he never ended up winning anything. So great player, top 75 player for sure. One of the best scorers of his era, but I don't know. To me, he's fourth of the what do we call it? The banana boat guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
he only eclipsed Darko in terms of
Darko, but I don't have him. You're right. In the 2003 draft, I don't have him above Bosch career-wise. But also, if you look at the banana boat guys, which then you throw Chris Paul in there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's LeBron, it's Dwayne. And then honestly, it's CP3 and then Carmelo. For me, some might say Carmelo, but to me, it's even though neither of them won titles, I feel like CP3 put himself in the position to win titles. It's just something always went wrong. But with Carmelo, he legitimately took himself out of the conversation with some of the decisions that he made.
All right, I would imagine you guys are going to be all over it tonight, Scoop.
Yes.
How many different reports are going to be emanating?
7,000. We've got
Tease Stadium tonight.
We've got a pregame show. We're going to be on playback during the game. I'll be at the game with Brady and Alex. It's funny. Every time I turn on NBA TV, I hear Brady and Alex asking questions. I don't even need to go anymore. Then we got a post-game show afterwards, and then ideally they win tonight and I take a day off. That would be nice. Although the Panthers could close that thing out tomorrow.
It's been a great ride. I mean, it's been unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, night after night action. You couldn't ask for much more. I mean, very entertaining postseason, as most postseasons are, but it's especially enjoyable when you have the local teams. And like you said, maybe some people are getting educated into how exciting a Stanley Cup chase really is, because that is a series of episodes that are just as intense as you can get. I mean, and each of these series has been phenomenal. All right, good luck to the Heat tonight. We'll look forward to your coverage there. Ethan Scoop Skolnick, 5 Reasons Sports Network. It's a pleasure. As always, thanks so much for the enlightenment, and we'll see you later on tonight.
All right.
Reports from the arena.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks a lot. Ethan Scoop Skolnick, ladies and gentlemen. You could pretty much throw anything at Scoop, and he will have like a line of statistical analysis that represents illustrating a well-made point. Carmelo Anthony, not my favorite player, even though obviously he was responsible and the driving force behind Syracuse's only national championship, which I had a great attachment to Cuse basketball for many years. Not so much now as I did probably years ago. I guess everything dissipates over time. But the fact that you have no titles, it's so ugly, isn't it, Lubie? Maybe that's where the argument comes in about championship rings. 0 titles. Chad Henne will be the poster child, though, would he not? For quarterbacks that have more championships than Dan Marino.
I mean,
how could you even for a second consider that as a part of the argument about a man's greatness? What do you think?
People differentiate the Robert Ory's from the Michael.
Robert Ory had like 7 rings, right? John Sally, I think, has 5.
He has like 4 or 5.
Chuck Niven, I believe, has 3 rings. He won with San Antonio and Chicago.
There's a differentiation between role player with lots of titles and star player with titles. There is, right or wrong, I don't know, but there is. Quarterbacks, we thought it was 1 title, but then Manning got his 1, and then actually he had a second that we really don't attribute to him.
And a second that Bubby Brister could have won.
and he gets punched. Didn't compete with Brady's 12 and Marino's. I mean, Montana's 8. Like, so it's sort of a load of garbage. Look, Rodgers has one. That's supposed to be the thing that would have changed for Marino. Rodgers is called the most talented quarterback ever, but no one puts him in the same breath as Brady. So, look, LeBron.
Yeah, some people do. I mean, there are guys that you hear say Rodgers is the best ever.
I think he's
Brett Tesler was saying that on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Tesla is one that does it, but most people don't. The cross era debates are dumb to me. Between you and Ken, I sort of have grown to have that opinion. But to me,
almost impossible to judge. I mean, if Magic Johnson was a player today, would he be great? You would have to think yes.
Yeah, look, it's my issue is. It's funny you say you do that. You're doing this thing where if the coaches hadn't gotten there, they wouldn't have been fired. No, they would have. Believe me, if Mike Budenholzer hadn't made the playoffs, he would have gotten fired because the Bucs should have won a title. So that's not why they got fired. They didn't get fired because they made it and lost. They got fired because they were underwhelming in the way that they lost. But
Budenholzer seemed to be partially responsible for the failure of the Milwaukee Bucks, in my opinion.
Well, look, he lost his brother.
I know it's easy to blame the coach, and the losing coach always looks like an ass, but. And I'm not one to really, make those kind of assessments. But over the long haul of watching Budenholzer, he didn't seem to be, and highly regarded by many, many people in the NBA. But he always looked like he was making the Bozoic move to me.
Yes, he reminds me, like, people give Vogel a lot of credit, but Vogel did win a title with the Lakers. But Vogel also doesn't move the needle for me.
I mean, is Tyronn Lue like a great coach?
He may be a decent coach. I know Budenholzer. And again, look, he lost his brother in the middle of the series. I'm sure that affected him, but he had done this for years. This wasn't a new thing for Budenholzer. My thing is, LeBron, in a weird way, gets punished for making too many. It's like, well, you went to 10 and lost. Yeah, because he shouldn't have made like 6 of them. Like,
exactly. Yes.
Jordan went 7 years with doing shit until he got Pippen. LeBron never did that. LeBron by year 3 was carrying fucking that team. Like, people forget, well, because you got swept by the Spurs. Yeah, the Pistons team they beat, where he beat them single-handedly. He sucked. His team was a fucking joke. Like, Anton Jameson was old and done, and even in his prime wasn't a number 2 on a contender. Boobie Gibson isn't your best shooter on a goddamn contender. Like the team that he carried over a Pistons team that had won a title and was a great group. They went to like 6 or 7 straight conference finals.
Yeah, well, and ignited a spark in you. Yes,
beat them. No, it's a weird.
And that championship argument is kind of like MAGA Republicans.
100%.
Where somebody that believes that to be the rigid, and most important criteria in judging greatness, you're not going to change their opinion about anything. They're going to believe that drag queens are the real problem.
Look, if LeBron had won 4 and only gone to 4, okay. See, then it's an equal debate.
No, I think, we said this many times. You put LeBron James on your roster, even now, and you immediately become a contender.
Look.
Period.
They just were a contender.
Yeah, I mean, this Laker team wasn't a great team. Anthony Davis's skills and obviously inherent talent notwithstanding, yet, he was somewhat enigmatic, even in putting up good numbers. For the Lakers, even in this Denver series. Now, we refuse to accept because he just doesn't look the part, this Nikola Jokic's greatness. Although people are coming around to realize that, so what if the guy is a basketball version of Butterbean Esch in terms of physicality? He knows what he's doing. He's one of those old, clever throwback players that's always making the right move or seemingly always doing so and does some pretty remarkable stuff that defies his lack of athletic appearance, where his passes and his decision making really are a big part of the game, and then he makes these shots that don't look like they have a chance, a prayer of going in, doesn't he? I mean, the awkward motion of that 3-point shot of his, it's not Manute Bol, but I mean, it certainly isn't reminding you of Ray Allen. You're not going to see some video about how to shoot the jumper and it's going to feature Nikola Jokic. And yet there he is bombing from 28 feet.
Look, we hate having to attribute credit to things we can't explain. Like, you can explain.
How do you explain the inexplicable? I mean, it's like any relationship, Lubie.
Look, and the funny thing is about LeBron is it's not about body of work because Jordan played like half the time and by the end was done. LeBron's played double the time and isn't done.
No, if you compare their late career game versus each other, I mean, look, Jordan with the Washington, were they still the Bullets then or the Wizards? But, I mean, when he finished up in Washington with Leonard Hamilton, and that, I mean, you were watching Duke Snyder trot out there to center field for the Mets in 62.
He was fine. He was averaging like 19 or 20, but he wasn't.
It was all right, but, I mean, it wasn't LeBron. LeBron was a major force this year.
LeBron is still himself.
Averaged some ridiculous. I think he averaged like 28 points a game or something. He was right up there.
What he did yesterday, like if his team helped him at all, they win that game. And so I hate doing that argument. Where does LeBron rank? Because people, Jordan and
I mean, if you're on the board, of thinking that on board with the thinking that he's the best of all time, nobody could call you Meshuggah.
Look, I think Jordan, Kareem, and LeBron all have an argument, and I'm not going to fight anyone because their eras, they were the dude. Kareem did it in like 3 eras. That's what's weird about. That's what gets lost about Kareem is that people don't realize he did it like 60.
And look at the pace of the game. That increases all the time. So when you're aging as an athlete and the pace of the game is increasing, I mean, look at the number of points that are being scored in these games now. Maybe there's less defense being played. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, something is a factor in there because you've gone from an era where, I mean, look at those late 90s Knicks Heat series where it was 76-75. I mean, that's halftime now. So the pace of the game, you would have to say, I mean, to run up and down the court and score like that, defense notwithstanding, obviously it takes a lot of energy, and you would think that would be detrimental to LeBron James' longevity. But, he's been just as good as ever. All right, that's going to do it for us. We had a lot of fun being with you. Let's go with this Miami Heat team tonight, huh? Do you want to sweat it out? You want to see more games? Or do you want to see closeout City? I'm hoping the Celtics get embarrassed again tonight. I really am. That would be sweet vindication for Pat Riley. And it would be very, very interesting to see. I mean, if the Celtics somehow look, everybody's thinking they're going to come in with this great intensity. Well, where was that last game? Were they not equally desperate? I guess it wasn't quite as equal because they still had one more chance. But that was the game you thought with this 150-0 stat that ultimately was going to decide the series right then and there. So sometimes it's like we say, you can have some killer instinct early in games. You see this in the NFL where, you're wondering, why is this guy saving this scoring opportunity, thinking he's going to get it later in the game? Go for it now, pour it on.
No, obviously.
Put a team away.
Yeah, no, look, the Celtics are a good team. That's never been fought. You don't want to give anyone – look, that you don't –
But that was such a collapse in Game 3. It really is. It could happen. Look, I mean, obviously sports goes a lot of different directions, but, I mean, it's hard to imagine. Unless the Heat just fall asleep tonight, it's hard to imagine that they don't close it out. I mean, if they revert back to being bricklayers and none of these guys make a contribution, that's a whole different story. But I can't imagine they come in with anything but, the mentality that this is it, man. Let's finish these guys off right now.
If you're smart, whatever the Celtics are saying and doing, you don't listen to any of it except for to use them as motivation. You don't want to give any team a chance, especially a team that was league favorite for most of the year. They're still it's there somewhere. Well, you don't want to.
I mean, the collapse. Two games where they fall on their home wood, and then a complete collapse in Game 3. Not an indicator of a team that's ready to bounce back and show you who they were during the regular season. All right, we got to run. Louie, we'll have Mike Mayo's Lunchbox 12 o'clock today here on South Florida Live, and we'll do it again tomorrow. Well, we also have stuff posted on 5 Reasons Sports Network. That's called Defo on 5 with, of course, the great Mike Lubie Lubitz. And we thank you so much for tuning in today. Tomorrow, we should feature the return of the great Tony Segreto, who's been, off the circuit here for a few weeks. But everybody loves Tony, and we do too. So hoping he comes back on the program, at least in part tomorrow. And then Thursday, we'll have the Hialeah Park Trivia Challenge Friday, a Degenerate Friday. Always a lot of fun. We'll be out there, too, at Gulfstream Park with the Lunchbox, which has been a lot of fun during the course of the season. No Triple Crown possibility this year, but we'll take you right into the Belmont there at Gulfstream Park on those Friday shows. So looking forward to that. See you next time. See you at 12 o'clock today as we leave you now that.
The time.
It's 9:06.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.